I still remember the exact moment it happened. 1994, 19 years old, first week of medical school. The surgeon was scanning us as we walked into the lecture theatre. He singled me out, the only male with long hair. "Hey, ponytail, come down here now and examine this patient." 130 students turned towards me. My mind went completely blank, my hands shook, and when I stumbled through it, he mocked me, publicly. I tried to defend myself, but he was quicker, sharper. Every word I said just made it worse. I sat back down, feeling the heat rise in my face, aware that the whole room had watched me shrink into myself. My brain flipped into pure reaction, self-doubt, embarrassment, and the overwhelming urge to disappear. For a long time, I believed that moment had damaged me, but I was wrong. What happened next taught me more about resilience than any medical lecture ever did. In this video, I'm going to show you how moments like this, the humiliating ones, the embarrassing ones, can make you stronger. Not by reacting with emotion, but by learning how to respond. Hi, I'm Dr. Finbar McGrady. Welcome to the channel. Now, before we go on, I want to acknowledge something. Humiliation stays with us far longer than it should. It's not just embarrassment. It feels like a threat to your competence and to your identity. That day, at 19 years of age, I didn't just feel humiliated, I felt exposed. And this feeling is incredibly human. Psychologist Hanson talks about the brain's reactive state, a state where we go into flight, fight, or freeze, or shame. And in humiliation, shame is usually the loudest voice. That's why these moments hit so hard, not because of the event itself, but because of what our minds say after the event. Years later, I found myself working with the same consultant, and even though time had passed, that moment from medical school still sat somewhere in my chest. One afternoon, I decided to bring it up, not confrontationally, just honestly, and to my surprise, he did remember the day. Not vaguely, he remembered it directly. It had clearly left a mark on him too. He paused, looked at me and said something like, "Ah, that was you." He acknowledged the impact, and I could sense there was more going on for him too. His own discomfort, his own internal demons about how he handled the situation that day. And months later, in front of colleagues, he offered me a formal apology, unprompted, genuine. And that moment strangely closed a loop that I didn't realize was still open. Now, it reminded me that people carry regrets quietly. That what feels like a wound to one person can feel like shame or guilt to another. But there was something else I realized too. That moment from my first week at medical school shaped how I wanted to teach. I made a promise to myself that I would never humiliate a student. Never weaponize a position of authority. Never confuse intimidation with education. And that's a promise I've carried with me ever since. In his book, Resilient, Hanson describes two modes that we operate in. The reactive state of fear, shame, defensiveness, like survival mode, instant emotional reflex, the tunnel vision. And this is where I went on that day. And it's where most of us go when we feel humiliated at work or at school or study. The second mode he describes is the responsive state, where we are grounded, we're calm, thoughtful, and able to see the bigger picture. Not personalizing someone else's behavior. The reactive state is automatic, the responsive state is trained. And the key insight is this: humiliation isn't what damages us. Staying in the reactive state is. That's where we lose confidence, we shrink back and avoid opportunities, and we start believing stories about ourselves that just aren't true. That day didn't break me, not because the situation wasn't painful, it definitely was, but because eventually I learned how to reinterpret it. I learned that someone else's behavior, even a senior person's, is not a verdict on your worth. I learned that reacting in shame, humiliation, or embarrassment is natural. But staying in those feelings, that's optional. And I learned that resilience isn't necessarily about being tough. It's about choosing consciously how you respond. Let me share a simple framework that you can use the next time you face humiliation, whether you're a student at work or earlier in your career. The first step is to pause the internal story. The first reaction is always emotional. Just noticing it interrupts that spiral. Second, name what actually happened, not what you fear it means. I stumbled on a question or I didn't know what I was doing is very different from everyone thinks I'm useless. 3, separate intent from impact. Most moments of humiliation are not malicious. Often they're clumsy teaching or stress or someone's ego getting out of control. Now this surgeon had a massive ego and he wasn't going to let a first-year student challenge him. 4, ask what response serves me best. Not them, not the room, me. What response serves me best? 5, turn the moment into data, not identity. Data can be used, identity becomes a prison. This is what Rick Hanson means by shifting into the responsive state. That's where growth happens. I look back at that 19-year-old version of me with a lot of compassion now. He didn't know yet that moments like these don't define you. And neither does anyone else's opinion of you, especially in the heat of a stressful situation. So if you've been humiliated at work or in training or in front of your peers, I want you to hear this clearly. The moment isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your response. And your response can make you stronger than the moment ever was. Let me know in the comments, what was the moment that almost broke you and what did it eventually teach you? Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.